Hi, this presentation's in regards to students' rights in schools and presented by myself based on some of the readings from module week 3 of of course 803 at Fort Hays State in our transition to teaching program. So I really liked this passage from one of our readings. Um, Obviously, it's a little bit long, but I really liked it, and so I just pulled the whole passage. But it basically discusses that over time, and I also thought it was kind of interesting, um, based on current events, based on yesterday, how it talked about Supreme Court leaning right and leaning left. Obviously, um, our current Supreme Court is leaning right, but through it all, I thought it was interesting that the opinion held by the court is summarized by "and ye harm none, do what ye will." And so I don't know what it is about the passage, whether it's the fact that it's old English style, just an older language, or if it's just the fact that I really like that in the education system, sometimes we're faced with so many layers, and it's hard as a teacher to sort through those, which I believe is part of what the point of this assignment is. Um, but how you can have this really complex situation and you can apply this simple principle to it to determine kind of how you should assess and handle the situation. So it really kind of spoke to me, and it kind of got my mind moving in the right direction for this week's assignment. And they continue on to say that if a student's speech or actions do not cause physical, emotional, or academic harm to others, they will receive the fullest protection offered by the Constitution. And I don't know, I just like that. By extending these rights to students, teachers offer them the greatest benefit of democracy in doing so, and invite them to become full members of society. And so I just, so it allows students to think, to be able to be themselves to a certain extent, to be able to kind of challenge the process in a way that, as long as it doesn't cause physical, emotional, or academic harm to others, then it can be okay. And so I think that's just kind of an interesting piece as I kind of think about it. And so the first court case, I kind of talked about a couple of them actually in this presentation. I know the assignment called for us to address one, but I kind of liked the contradiction. I don't know if I'd call it contradiction of the three cases that I kind of picked, and two of them are very similar. But this is a First Amendment case, Tinker versus Des Moines. It's during the Vietnam War. It was on a number of the articles. Basically, students protested the Vietnam War, which was a common practice throughout the country during that time frame. And these students wore black armbands to show their disapproval for the Vietnam War. And in response, the school banned the armbands. Students continued to wear them. Students were suspended and weren't allowed back until they stopped wearing the armbands. So one of the fathers, it was last name was Tinker, sued the district. The district court ruled in favor of the district. They appealed it to the appellate court and then passed along to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court overturned the district court decision. And and the kind of the quote from that was, the students' actions did not disrupt the learning environment or advocate or cause harm to themselves or others, and because of that, it was permissible. And so, I feel like wearing an armband is a fairly simple gesture that I would say would meet those demographics when it comes to not causing harm. And similar to the previous quote, if we go back and look, that it didn't cause physical, emotional, or academic harm to others. Now, you might be able to argue that there's emotional harm taking place if maybe someone's parents were were overseas in the Vietnam War or something along those lines. So it can kind of get a little muddy in that area. But all in all, I think that's a good example, and obviously so the articles that we read this week of the Supreme Court addressing students' First Amendment. The second and third are very similar, and it's associated with the First Amendment. and basically school requirements. So this one was in the state of New York in the public school, um, held a short non-denominational prayer at the beginning of the school day, and the courts basically ruled against it, saying that it was creating an official stamp of approval upon which particular kind of prayer and religious service, and so it wasn't allowing for it was kind of infringing on religious freedom, so to speak. And so that, which is a piece of the First Amendment when it comes to not requiring religion, which is a big founding part of why our country was founded. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the second one is a very similar scenario, just in the state of Pennsylvania, and they were required to, they read a Bible verse at the beginning of the day, and then everyone recited the Lord's Prayer, which obviously, if the first one with Ingalls was ruled in favor of the students, then obviously this one would, because this one is even more picking a specific prayer, the Lord's Prayer, which would cause a few more potential issues. And so the thing that I thought was really interesting about these was these are cases where obviously the religious piece, but it just makes me kind of think and wonder when it comes to First Amendment, when it comes to what's the First Amendment rights of a teacher in school, what's the First Amendment rights of the school, and then what's the First Amendment rights of the student. And as I think about this, I think that the students have the most benefit of the First Amendment in the school setting. And then I think a distant second would probably be teachers, followed by the school district, just from a stance on how protected you are and what you say and how you say it. And I would say that the students get the most grace in the process. That's one of the things that I think about as a teacher, and why I kind of thought about the religion piece. I am a religious individual, and it just makes me, I feel like it's one of those areas where I came from a college that was a religious college, so it was allowed to have those conversations. And so that's one of those things that's been over my first year as a teacher, has been something that I've had to be careful with, to make sure that I'm not imposing any religious influence over my students in any way. So, but yeah, and then references. Those were the two articles from this week's readings that were utilized for today's presentation. Thanks, and have a great day.